This lecture for commercial law for business students at Al-Isra University. We are going to proceed from page 129. The inability to negotiate promissory notes prevented a banking system from fully developing. During the English Civil War in the 17th century, merchants began to deposit cash with the goldsmiths, who lent it out at interest and issued the depositors promissory notes, the forerunner of banknotes. But a judicial decision in 1703 declared that promissory notes were not negotiable, whether they were made payable to the order of a specific person or to the bearer. Parliament responded the following year with the Promissory Notes Act, which for the first time permits an assignee to sue the notes maker. Types of commercial papers and parties. There are four types of commercial papers, which they are drafts, checks, notes, and certificates of deposit, and we are going to study them one by one. Section number 1, we are going to talk about drafts. Definition: a draft is an unconditional order in writing. There is no condition and it must be in writing, addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to the order of a specific person or to the bearer. The draft is one of the two basic types of commercial paper. The other is the note. As indicated by its definition, the draft is a three-party transaction. Parties to a draft. We are going to study them. The drawer, the first one, the drawer. The drawer, he is the one who directs a person or any entity, usually a bank, to pay a sum of money stated in an instrument. For example, a person who makes a draft or writes a check. The drawer prepares a document, a form, usually the draft, ordering the drawee to remit a stated sum of money to the payee. The drawee, he is the person or entity that the draft is directed to and that is ordered to pay the amount stated on it. The most common drawee is a bank. In this case, the drawer, drawee, and payee need not be different people. The same person may have different capacities in a single transaction. For example, a drawer, the person asking that payment be made, may also be the payee, the person to whom the payment is to be made. The acceptor, a drawee who signs the drafts becomes an acceptor. The drawee pledges to honor the draft as written. To accept, the drawee need only sign her name on the draft, usually vertically on the face, but anywhere will do. Words such as accepted or good are unnecessary. However, a drawee who indicates that she might refuse to pay will not be held to have accepted. The drawer directs the funds to be pulled from the drawee. and the drawee pays the person entitled to payment as directed. The payee, he is the person to whom the payment is to be made. The person entitled to payment as directed to be paid. Of course, the payee may be the drawer himself or any other third party other than the drawer or the drawee. In this example on page 132, I urge you to look at it and study it. The drawer is Samir Khalid, the drawee is Yasser Wa'il, and the draft was accepted by him. The payee is Ahmad Hilmi. Types of drafts. Types of drafts. Drafts can be divided into two broad subcategories: sight drafts and time drafts. Sight drafts, when you see it, you have to pay, and time drafts, you have to pay on fixed time or the time drawn or written on the face of the draft. A side draft. Side drafts are financial instruments that are payable on demand. Once presented by the payee. This is in contrast to the time draft, where the instrument cannot be honored until a specific date in the future. It is not unusual for an exporter to utilize a signed draft as the most expedient form of payment, where arranging the shipment of goods to a customer based at an international location, while a side draft is defined as a pay-on-demand document. That does not necessarily mean that the draft is honored immediately. In most cases, the banks receiving the draft will take some time to verify the document along with other documents and are presented with the side drafts. Any apparent issues with the documents are reported to the payee as they are discovered, making it possible to contact the client and take whatever measures are necessary to resolve the situation. If everything is in order, the payee will receive full credit for the funds within 1 to 3 business days. In some situations where the bank and the presenter of the draft have established an ongoing working relationship, the funds may be made available in a matter of hours instead of days. Time draft. Time drafts are financial drafts that carry a payment date that is set for some specific future point in time. Generally, there are specific circumstances and conditions that must be met in order for the time draft to pay out. Often, the time draft is put in place with the anticipation that certain events will occur between the date that the draft is created and the date that the draft is set for execution. The time draft cannot be executed prior to the date specified in the terms of the draft agreement. Furthermore, any provisions included in the text of the draft must be complied with in full before the issuing financial institution will execute a time draft. For example, if the anticipation is that a letter of credit will be approved prior to the execution date named in the time draft, the approval must take place and be confirmed before the time draft will be honored. The time draft is sometimes utilized as a means of making advance preparations to render compensation to a third party is payable in the future. In situations where the payment is conditional on the completion of specified tasks or projects contracted by the third party, the issuing institution usually requires some sort of proof that the project or task has in fact been completed before the draft is honored and processed. Thus, the time draft is sometimes a helpful tool in keeping projects on target for completion, as the recipient of the draft has a vested interest in completing the work on schedule and receiving compensation in a timely manner.